Hey YouTube! Welcome to the next section of The Future Is Now, a 5-part series where I optimize the early game of Fire Emblem Awakening. If you didn't see the first video covering the prologue and explaining the goals of the project, I'll link it in the description so you can check it out. The basic gist is that I'm playing the first 5 maps of the game on Lunatic mode, and training some early units while being as fast and reliable as possible. When we're done, we'll have a roadmap a new player can use to help them start a Lunatic run and develop their own tactical playbook. Before we start, I do want to address one mistake I made in the first video. When Fred was charging in to fight the bosses group in the prologue, I said, Fred has enough HP and defense to take a hit from everyone in the northern squad, but only if he's at full HP. Lissa gets in there and also... This is true, but only if the mage doesn't roll magic +2. If he does and every attack hits, a full HP Fred will take 1 more than lethal damage. If that happens, this is the backup plan I forgot to include. Instead of Lissa transferring Chrom to Frederick and healing, Chrom will hand Lissa off and heal himself. Her res bonus will nullify the mage's extra power. On his move, Frederick takes her vulnerary and chugs it instead of killing the Myrmidon. That guy doesn't do any damage, so taking him out now or on enemy phase has the same outcome.
Hold on.
From there, you can use Transfer Tech to heal Chrom and get to the same position in time to fight the stragglers. The mage rolling magic +2 only costs you 1 vulnerary charge and loses 1 heal cast for Lissa. Her support gives the mage 1% more listed crit and drops Fred's listed hit and avoid by 1 compared to Chrom's, so not a huge loss at all. Keep in mind this is all assuming the mage actually rolls magic +2 in the first place, which is a 40% chance. With that out of the way, let's move on to the actual reason we're here. Chapter 1. Where the prologue eased us into the game by having half the enemies wait patiently for us to engage them and a stationary boss, Chapter 1 throws us into the action immediately. There are fewer enemies, but everyone charges us on turn 1. That's not the only way this map ups the ante though. It's also the first time we see effective weaponry. In this case, a hammer that's meant to dissuade us from trying to fight everything with Frederick. In this series, I'm looking for clears that work regardless of random enemy movement and skill rolls, and that adds another few wrinkles of difficulty. First, the prologue had market stalls that could work as obstructions, so it was simple to funnel enemies where you wanted them to go, or at least reduce their randomness to the point that it didn't affect the strategy. This chapter's terrain is much more open, only having a few spots of forest tiles that generally limit the player more than the enemies just because of our starting positions. The more open space there is on a map, the more random enemy movement rears its head. If an enemy can attack or approach by taking 2 different paths that are the same length, they'll randomly pick which one they take, and this early on when our options are severely limited and our training margins are really thin, that can easily throw a wrench in our positioning. One way to work around this is to leave units inside an enemy's range on either the same row as them or the same column. If you do this, they'll always walk directly to your unit and attack, since the shortest path between any 2 points is a line. For enemies in closer quarters, a good strategy is to use your unit's bodies and the terrain to make it so that they can only attack their preferred target from one position. That's often a lot safer than it looks because the AI doesn't see ahead and they don't work together. Enemies won't change their move order to score a kill by ganging up on one unit, and they also don't realize they can cut off each other's legal moves by body blocking. Enemy skills are another big factor in this clear. In the prologue, the extra hit, avoid, and magic enemies could get from their skills were easy to play around, but here, the generic fighters can have HP +5, which can be the difference between killing them and needing an extra attack. For my clear to be reliable in the face of this, I need to be able to kill each fighter in the same number of attacks regardless of whether they have this skill. In practice, that means I need to make sure my last attack overkills by at least 5 if they don't roll any skills, because I can't ever do an attack that would leave them alive if they rolled HP +5 but dead if they didn't. These 2 factors, random enemy skills and random enemy movement, mean that this clear has a lot more going on under the hood than my optimization of the prologue did, and I'm really proud of the strategy I came up with as a result. So without further delay, let's fell some Risen.
Hold on.
Fred starts us off by taking the bronze sword from Robin. He'll be using it a lot on this map. Crom carries Fred to this fighter and unequipped so he doesn't accidentally kill with his dual strike. Robin and Lissa go down to finish the job. Our positions this turn are very specific. If Robin were further to the west, our new recruits wouldn't be close enough to help kill the Northern Mercenary next player phase. If Frederick were further to the west or the south, the approaching Archer and Southern Mercenary would have a chance to move in ways that would keep them from being able to reach the spaces we need them on for the next enemy phase.
Captain.
On turn 2, we get our first new units of the game, Sully and Varian. Sully is a level 2 Cavalier with mediocre bases but solid growths, like a lot of Awakening units. If you train her early on, she'll have pretty good filler combat all game long, but since she doesn't have any sustain, she won't ever reach the levels your top tier combat units can during the Vol Mark and later. Even if you don't want to use her for the entire campaign, her daughter can quickly eclipse her with the right father, and Kael's Prologue is a nice place to pick up extra XP if nothing else. Back to Sully though, in this series we mostly care about two things she has, her pair-up and her base 8 speed. Cavalier pair-ups give incredible stat bonuses, +2 to strength and defense and +1 to skill and speed even with no support rank. That gives units like Robin, Crom, and Vake the push they need to survive combat and score kills in a lot more situations this early on. Plus, she can ferry those units around faster than they could walk. Her base speed means she can avoid getting doubled by most enemies for a while, even as an unpaired unit, so she can safely chip in to work toward kills without getting destroyed on the counter, or hurting your action economy by pairing up. Discipline is a neat trait too. She starts with double E weapon ranks, but if you train her here, or especially in Chapter 2, she'll gain weapon XP really fast, and she'll be ready to take Kellum's Javelin if you want her to, or use any sword or lance you have access to after you reach Chapter 5. Last episode, I said male and female Robin's performance is identical this early on, but technically that's not true. Female Robin has the very slight advantage of being able to get a C support with Sully on this map, while male Robin can't, which lets her use C-rank Cavalier pair-up bonuses in Chapter 2. That's not a huge advantage, it disappears in Chapter 3 because male Robin can have a C support with Stall by then, and for most strategies it doesn't matter at all, but it can let you get away with a couple of otherwise impossible moves, especially with speed or defense boons. I'm going to play this chapter in such a way that if you followed my moves exactly, but you were using female Robin instead, you'd get the C support after this map, just for completion's sake. Varian's not as good as Sully long term, but he still has some nice contributions. 2 range is an incredible asset on Lunatic difficulty since it lets you chip enemies without retaliation, so he's useful to set up kills for 1 range units like Crom, Sully, or Vake. His Archer pair-up gives +2 to strength, skill, and defense, so he can serve a similar purpose to Sully on that front. He doesn't care about his bases for the most part, with one exception. He's ungodly slow. He can't even safely fight the Archer on this map. He'll get doubled and one-rounded without at least +1 speed or defense from a pair-up partner. Varian will usually have better accuracy than your other 2 range options this early, which is always a nice bonus. Later in the game, he ends up in an awkward position where he's just sort of okay at anything he can do. He's decent with an early promotion to Bow Knight, but Gregor's better at that. He can be an alright staff bot with a Sage reclass, but Anna or even Tiki are better at that. He's a serviceable Wyvern Rider for filler combat in the mid-game, but like half a dozen people are better at that, including Sully. He's not a great parent for most of the kids during the main campaign because of his mediocre class access, but his cat modifiers can be useful for some children in Apotheosis if that's your cup of tea. Varian's not the best at anything, and he's hard to train, but if you're willing to put the work in, he can just barely work as a second string in most any role. The biggest point in his favor is that he comes carrying the best healing item in the game, the Elixir, which is critical for most clears of the next chapter, and just really nice to have generally. These two's first move is going to be to pair up and chip the Merc Robin fought on enemy phase. Of course, Sully unequips her Bronze Lance so she doesn't steal our XP. Robin trades Lissa off for Sully, then finishes the Mercenary. Fred just waits on the fort for the southern wave to come in. I did say I would avoid sparkle tiles, but for the sake of consistency, I just rigged this to be something that won't affect gameplay. Without Sully's defense bonus, this archer would have exactly killed Robin. I made an exception to the no dodges rule for the hammer bro here. He has just under a 7.8% chance to hit Fred with his attack, which is lower than the chance of some moves I made in the prologue failing, so I decided to allow it. Robin moves back to fight the archer he pulled in, and Virian carries Lissa up so she can heal him. Fred is going to kill the hammer bro so he doesn't have to dodge another attack. I'm willing to have to deal with one, but not two. If you're rigging your level ups, try to get Fred to gain speed here. With that and a Robin or Crom pair up, he'll be able to double the barbarians next chapter. He'll also be able to double the boss on this chapter, but that doesn't matter for this strategy in particular. This northern fighter is actually the reason I'm using the southern fort instead of the northern one. He gets to the southern fort one turn later than the other fighters, but they all get to the northern one at the same time. And if that happens, the northern fighter has a random chance to body block one of the others. This way, that chance is eliminated.
My steel is yours.
Fred hands off the bronze sword to Crom and unequips his silver lance, then Crom picks up a level from killing the Merc. Robin just takes out the archer.
It's all right.
Crom moves out of the boss's range and chugs his vulnerary. If the boss's attack had hit earlier, Lissa could top him up now, and Robin could use a vulnerary too. Virian hands his elixir off to Robin, then Lissa gets in another staff row. Robin's going to move one step left and separate up. That looks scary since Lissa's in range, but she's actually able to tank this attack with a +2 defense pair up in a woods tile as long as she gains HP or defense at least once, which happens a little over 94% of the time. Because she doesn't die in one hit, Robin is the more attractive target because, according to my testing, this boss's AI will go for a lower damage attack as long as he sees at least 7% higher listed hit than he does on the most damaging attack, even if that means taking a counter. Lissa has 20 to avoid naturally in this forest tile, while Robin only has 20. That small of a difference wouldn't normally change the targeting priority, but Lissa is supported by both Virian via pair up and Sully via adjacency. 2 levels of dual support give an additional 10 avoid, bringing her total up to 32. Robin doesn't get this bonus since he's only supported by Sully, so the boss sees 80% hit on Robin compared to 68% on Lissa. That's a difference of 12%, which is over the 7% threshold the boss needs to see to be willing to attack Robin despite his higher defense. Normally, the boss would prefer to move up one space to benefit from the forest support bonus himself, but Crom is going to attack from that square to force the boss into open terrain for the last turn. If Crom's at full HP, he doesn't need healing, since he can take 2 hits with Fred's pair up on a woods tile. All that's left now is to get the kill. The boss always has HP plus 5, so we don't have to plan around that. We just need to maximize what we get out of this turn. One more useful thing Virion and Sully can do is survive a round of combat with the boss at base. Sully pulls Lissa to let her get in a little more heal XP.
It's all right.
Crom and Robin trade the bronze sword and the elixir to Fred, since he'll want them for the next chapter. Robin pulls Crom to land the killing blow. 100% hit, no bronze sword required. And that's another map down. This one was much harder to crack than the prologue, because I wanted to get Crom to level 3 without having to rely on the enemies cooperating. Initially, I thought that for him to get 2 levels, I would have to sacrifice some training on Robin or Fred, but this strategy shows you can do all 3 at once. Personally, I like to focus on Crom this chapter if I focus on Robin in the prologue, since you'll be using Crom to some extent in every playthrough, and this map and the next are relatively easy places to train him because of the number of axe enemies. As far as I can tell, this clear has no points of failure besides missing attacks, which is unavoidable this early. No combination of enemy skills can interfere, and I managed to eliminate every possible instance of random enemy movement. Like I said at the beginning, I'm really proud of this strategy, and I really appreciate you watching to the end. If you enjoyed, think about leaving a like to help me out, or subscribing to be notified when the next part comes out. As for me, I'll keep chugging along, and I hope to see you in another week or two as we seek aid from the Feroxy in Chapter 2. Surely nothing will go wrong on the road. Thanks for watching.